We're looking at problem 8 from section 7.4. This is linear programming, the simplex method for maximization. And this problem, all it asked you to do was what we did in part 1, which was to set up the simplex tableau. But we're going to go ahead and keep going with this one as an example. So this is part 2. And in this video, we're just going to go through the pivoting process. So the first thing we need to do is identify our pivot. And to do that, you want to look at this bottom row here, all these values up until the z column, not including the z column. Those are called indicators. So those are the bottom row for each of the variables, the 3 x variables and the 3 slack variables in this case. There are 3 of each in this problem. So what you do is you look and you're looking for the, they say the most negative indicator. So you're looking for a negative value and the greatest magnitude negative value, which in this case is the -5. That's our most negative indicator. That means this is our pivot column. We're going to pivot on column 1. Now we need to figure out which of these values is the pivot. And to do that, we're going to go over here and we're going to look at these values divided by these values, and we want the least result from that. So if you take 36 divided by 3, that's 12. And then we have 24 divided by 1 and 32 divided by 1. Clearly the 12 is the least. And so this is going to be our pivot. Okay, again, a quick recap there. This is the most negative indicator. Indicating our pivot row. Or sorry, pivot column. That's a column, not a row. And then when you take that column, these 3 values, you divide these end values by those 3 values. The least of those, the minimum of those, is going to be our pivot. Okay, that's how you identify the pivot. And there's a reason for that. We're basically finding the biggest bottleneck in this system, the thing that appears to be restricting. It's a constraint, right? These are constraints. We're finding the thing that appears to be constraining the most, and we're working off of that to manipulate this system. And that's going to hopefully get us to our solution for a maximum as quickly as possible. So pivoting, what you do is you use row operations with your pivot to get zeros for the rest of that column. So we're going to use row 1 with each of these rows, with row 2, with row 3, and with row 4 to get zeros there. Now, our textbook and many textbooks will have you start by getting a 1 there, which you can do. And if you're programming a computer to do it, you'd probably have it do that. But dividing that row by 3 will get you some fractions, and that's fine. But I usually, if I can avoid bringing fractions into it till later, I will. It just makes the arithmetic a little easier if you're doing it by hand. There is no reason that we can't have a 3 there. It's not a problem. So I'm just going to leave it and not do anything to this row. We'll just keep row 1 the same. So my row operation for row 1 is just keep row 1. For row 2, I want to get a 0 there, right? So I'm going to do row 1 with 3 row 2, and I'm going to do some subtracting, right? And which way do I subtract? Do I do 3 row 2 minus row 1 or row 1 minus 3 row 2? To make that decision, I like to keep these numbers positive. So I look over here, and if I do 3 row 2, that's going to be 72. I want to do 72 minus 36, not the other way around. So I'm going to do 3 row 2 minus row 1. And then same idea down here. I'm going to do 3 row 3 minus row 1. Again, that's going to give me a 96. So I'll keep positive value in the right column. 3 row 3 minus 90. Oh, oops, not 96. That was a number I said. Minus row 1. And then finally, row 4, we're going to do 5 row 1 plus 3 row 4. And this is where if we divided by 3 in row 1, the numbers might be smaller. But again, we'd have fractions. So it's trade-off, whatever you prefer, I suppose. Or if you are being told to do it a certain way. You got to do what you're told to do, I guess. Or if you're coding a computer to do it, maybe you want to follow the more conventional way. 5 row 1 plus 3 row 4. And those are going to be my row operations. So row 1, we're just going to keep the same. 3, 2, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 36. Row 3 row 2 minus row 1. So 3 minus 3 is 0. 18 minus 2 is 16. 3 minus 1 is 2. It's going to be a negative 1. That's going to be 3, 0, 0. And then 72 minus 36 is 36. 3 row 3 minus row 1. That's going to give me a 0 there. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. Negative 3 minus 1 is going to be negative 4. Negative 1, 0, 3, 0, and then 96 minus 36 is going to be 60. And then finally, my last row, we're doing 5 row 1 plus 3 row 4. 5 times 3 is 15, 3 times 5 is 15, so it's going to be 0. That was by design. That's what we were going for. 10 plus 3 is 13 there. 5 plus negative 9 is going to be negative 4. That negative there means I'm not going to be done after this step. I'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to have to pivot again. Wait, did I do that right? Yes, I did. 5 times 1 plus 3 times negative 3. Yep. Okay. And then, 5 plus 0 is 5. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 3 is going to be 3. And then 5 times 36 is 180 plus 0. All right. So there's my step after my first pivot. That's Simplex Tableau. And we're just going to do the same process again now. And the reason we have to go again is we check those indicators. All those variable columns, x1, x2, x3, s1, s2, s3, those are our variables. And there is still a negative. So if there's a negative, you pick your most negative indicator, which is the negative 4. It's the only one. And that's going to be our pivot column then. And again, in the top 3 rows, we're going to take these values divided by these values. Okay. The least of those is going to be our pivot. One thing to note here, if you get a negative for one of these quotients, we're going to disregard that one. We're not going to use that one. So the negative 4 here does not count. We're not going to do 60 divided by negative 4. We're just going to ignore that one. So we're going to have 36 divided by 1 and 36 divided by 2 as our options. And 36 divided by 2 wins. It's the least of those two values. So this is going to be our pivot. Okay. And so we go around that now. We're going to set up our row operations to the next step. And again, I don't like to reduce it to a 1 because fractions, right? I like fractions, but if I can do arithmetic without them and save them till the end, that's usually easier. So yeah, I'm going to do 2 row 1 and row 2, right, for my first thing. And since I'm doubling row 1, I'm going to do row 1 minus row 2, right? 2 row 1 minus row 2 to keep a positive value on the right there. So 2 row 1 minus row 2. And then row 2 will just stay the same. That's the pivot row. And then it's not going to be far enough down there. Row 3, I'm going to do 2 row 2 plus row 3, right? That'll give me that 0. And then finally, row 4, I can actually do the same operation with row 4. 2 row 2 plus row 4, because it's also got a negative 4 there. And so let's do it. 2 row 1 minus row 2 is going to give me 6. 4 minus 16 is negative 12. 2 minus 2 is 0. That was by design. 2 minus negative 1 is 3. 0 minus 3. 0, 0. 72 minus 36 is 36. Row 2, keep it the same. 0, 16, 2, negative 1, 3, 0, 0, 36. 2 row 2 plus row 3. 0 plus 0, 32 plus negative 5 is going to be 27. 4 plus negative 4 is 0. That was by design. Negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3. 6, 3, 0. 72 plus 60 is 132. And then finally, row 2 row 2 plus row 4, we get 0. We get negative 10 plus 13 is 3. It's a good sign. We still got the positive there. We get a 0 here. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. The first column was okay. 0 plus 0, but I was looking at row 3 instead of row 2. 2 row 2 plus row 4. It should be 32 plus 13, which would be 45. Okay, and then 2 times 2 is 4 plus negative 4 is 0. I caught it when I was looking at this. That wasn't working. So it's good to, do those operations as you catch your mistakes, right? Even if you think one of them is already kind of done. Anyway, negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Good sign. And then 6 and 0 and just 3 there. And then that last one, we have 72 plus 180 is going to be 252. Yep. And so we're done at this point with the pivoting. And the way we know that we're done is you look at these and there are no negative indicators. Okay, so we are ready to interpret. That'll be part 3 of this video. We could also reduce that last row by a factor of 3 if we wanted to. However, we'll just save that for the interpretation piece. Part 3 is next.